I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. It's just a matter of, waiting for the right moment, the right opportunity, the right idea that really inspire us. Well, also, I mean, taking into considerations my kids were young. So kind of my family background, my father was an entrepreneur and he had a really successful exit when he was in his 50s. But, growing up, he's the person, I guess, that always inspired me. It was like, yeah, at some point I want to, go out and make my own mark, start my own company. But I didn't want to do it at the expense of my family.
Leading and scaling a business isn't hard because you lack ideas. It's hard because your time, your team's time, and your focus get eaten alive by the daily grind. Too many leaders are overwhelmed, under pressure, and bogged down by low leverage tasks. I've learned this the hard way, scaling Nobody Studios, advising fast-growing startups and Fortune 500s, all while leading multiple ventures at once. I've seen firsthand how even the best executives get buried in meetings, lose strategic visibility, and burn out just trying to keep up. That's why I built the AI Executive Coaching Program, the same frameworks and tools that I've used in my own work to make it more meaningful, better leveraged, and more impactful. We're helping leaders in global businesses get hours back every week, turning chaos into clarity and operating with more leverage than ever before. This isn't theory. This is about identifying the traits you need to unlearn, the tasks pivotal to your success, and the tools that can be built into workflows to optimize your capabilities every day. From transforming meeting scripts into transcripts, into action plans, and spotting performance patterns you can't see on your own, we're upgrading the way executives lead. If you want to scale without losing your edge, let's talk. You'd be surprised how quickly you can lead at a whole new level.
Enjoying the podcast? Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on YouTube. This way, you won't miss any episode, and it greatly supports our podcast. Today on the Unlearn podcast, we're joined by Sherry Chang, CEO of Neuralab, a company at the forefront of computer vision and immersive technology. Now, in this conversation, we explore three big ideas shaping the next wave of innovation. What computer vision really is, beyond the hype, how machines can learn to see, interpret, and make sense of the physical world, and why that capability is becoming foundational across industries, how to lead in an emergent market when the market is evolving faster than the rules. Sherry shares what it takes to build teams, make decisions, and stay grounded when you're operating ahead of clear playbooks. And finally, the road ahead for immersive tech. From spatial computing to real-world applications to what actually matter, what's coming, what's overblown, and where our leaders should be paying attention. This conversation is about seeing differently, both technically, strategically, and as a leader, what it takes to build in markets that are being invented. It's fascinating use cases of the technology he has built in healthcare to performance development, sports, and further afield. So let's get into it. All right, Sherry, I'm delighted to have you on the show. We met many years ago, really, when you were at Intel at the time. I think Lean Enterprise had come out, and you were one of the first people who actually reached out to me when the book came out and was like, we need you to come and spend time with us in Intel to start practicing this idea of experimentation, testing and learning, building these new products and taking them to market. And it was great to meet you and your team and how much great work you were doing inside of Intel, like really pushing the company forward, finding ways to innovate or keep innovating. And, you've been there for many years and had a stellar career there. But today, we're sort of here and you're now a startup founder, of many years, building probably one of the more interesting, I believe, computer vision products on the market, which again is inspired from your time in working in Intel. So for many people, when they sort of look at your resume and they'll see, a senior technologist, a CTO, a leader, and now switching all of that up in, a company of Intel size to go and start off your fledgling little startup and grow it over the last number of years. If you look back at your own career, is there sort of a moment that maybe didn't mean a huge amount at the time, but in retrospect, you're like, you know what, this really was like a seminal moment that helped me shape, who I am, how I work, and what I want to do.
Yeah, I believe I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. It's just a matter of waiting for the right moment, the right opportunity, the right idea that really inspire us. Well, also, I mean, taking into considerations my kids were young and I do want to prioritize them when they were growing up. So kind of my family background, my father was an entrepreneur and he had a really successful exit when he was in his 50s. But growing up, he's the person I guess that always inspired me. It's like, yeah, at some point, I want to go out and make my own mark, start my own company. But I didn't want to do it at the expense of my family. And I know that there are a lot of other entrepreneurs who have young kids, and greatly admire that the step they're taking. But for me, I felt that I couldn't balance both because one, growing up, I never saw my father. He was
Yeah.
always off into, some other corner of the world and, missed my graduation, both high school and college. And glad he showed up for my wedding, so that was a plus.
You made one of them. Well done.
Don't hate Dad, I love you. He's fully retired now, so I think it's the opposite problem. It's like, how come you don't come visit me in the and he lives in Malaysia, so the role is now opposite. The role is now flipped. But yeah, no, I think for that was, I mean, that was a lesson learned. It was like, hey, I want to start my own company, but I also need to prioritize my family, and I couldn't do both at the same time. And but now that my kids are older, and this idea really came to us, I think, at a point where I felt comfortable about kind of my kids are older and they're a teenager or in college and doesn't have as much physical need. So it was during the pandemic when the world was shutting down, and we felt that the time has come, for a safer interaction with technology. So my co-founder and I started experimenting, in our living room. This became our side project, and we were experimenting, with new computer vision, AI deep neural network. So yeah, we created an initial prototype that hey, this is possible using just a camera. And we can translate gestures, into the common input device that a common input command that every application already support. So essentially, you just need to install a software, plug in the camera, and start adding gesture. And there's default configuration, but there right now in our current iteration, we support 15 gestures. You can configure, add mouse, keyboard, or touch. So yeah, so that's kind of the genesis of the company. I mean, we want to do a company on our own term, and it has to be the right idea. And we felt that hey, that was the right idea at the time. That
Yeah.
and we still do believe that there hasn't been a lot of focus on human computer interaction, and also there's not a lot of focus in computer vision, or I call it like the new emerge visual intelligence in AI currently. So everybody's focused on large language model or agentic AI currently. Not a lot are focused on, I want to say, visual intelligence, but also I think of it as, hey, if AI is becoming more, imitating more and more human characteristics, LLM gives you, the ability to speak, but we're missing the eyes. It's like right now AI can't see. And so we see us kind of at the forefront of starting to add that missing capability.
Yeah, well, I still remember the first phone call I did with you during the pandemic where you were like, okay, Barry, look, we've built this amazing interaction experience where you can just start moving your hands on you using the camera on my laptop, and the mouse was moving and I could click on things by pushing down, and it was amazing. I felt like I was in Minority Report. I was literally like, "Oh, look at this! I could, you could instantly like teleport to this moment where you're immersed in this whole experience of using your hand gestures to like interact with the machine." And what blew me away is that this your technology works on anything. It doesn't matter if you're a Mac or an Apple, or like you just need a very simple sort of low cost camera, and then suddenly you're able to like move to this sort of gesture type experience, which for me, I was just like, oh my God, this is awesome, you know? And I could sort of download it and use it in, you know, seconds. And that was years ago, right? And you just keep building this product. It keeps going from strength to strength. And as you say, like, yes, there's a huge amount of noise about the interaction of just typing things into these large learning models and getting output that, you know, it, again, surprises people by the first version of output that comes back. But this is sort of, for me, I feel like it's more input and direction that you're, and the excitement for me when I, you know, not only first saw your product, but continue to see it evolve, is this really immersive experience that you're creating. And it's also another way for people to sort of interact with machines. So for people who are maybe new to the computer vision side of artificial intelligence and so forth, talk to them a little bit about what some of the things you had to unlearn about creating this sort of AI gesture recognition for every industry, and then how that plays into whether you're performing a medical procedure or you're standing up doing the keynote and you can just swipe your hand and the slide flies by. You know, it's just super cool to me. So tell us some of the things you had to unlearn about even building something like this.
Yeah, I wouldn't say like unlearn. I mean, it's just like the more we delve into the technology, it's just I think feels like this is just the beginning. There's so much we can build, with visual intelligence that's I think the world is just not seeing right now. Feel like, for instance, I mean, one of the things that was very important for us in building our gesture control app is that one of the problem that people didn't really put a focus in solving is how do you detect between intentional versus unintentional interaction? Because you can just start waving things in the air and you accidentally, trigger a lot of things. I won't say we solve all the problem, but I think we're the first one that really try to focus on the problem is, how do you how do you filter out the noise and really focus on, actions that are intentional. So we add a couple of key points like, okay, like eye gaze, it's like, hey, we kind of step back and ask like, hey, how would you interact with another human? Like if we're having a conversation, how do you know that I'm trying to get your attention, on the street, or that, I'm, intentionally communicating with you. So eye gaze, eye contact is one of the clue, usually. And then that's one of the feature we support, is you making eye contact, or you might be waving your hand to try to get somebody's attention. So and that happens to be another one of our feature. Um, so yeah, so this is kind of we started down the path of like how do you just make communication with technology as easy as communicating with another human. And the reason I said, hey, is this is just the beginning. Right now, the computer vision, they're focusing on more training models. Like, okay, I can recognize an object, I can recognize a bat, I can recognize an apple, an orange, right? But what do you do with that information? So I think we're starting to get into is like, hey, it's like I'm holding a pen, or I'm holding a red pen or a blue pen, and it's like, hey, if I start doing this, I maybe I'll be drawing on a virtual whiteboard, or if I'm picking up a baseball bat, that the AI will start recognizing as like, hey, you want to it's like you want to throw a pitch, maybe show me a game where it's pitching me, the baseball, and be able to see me and kind of evaluate my pose and start giving me tips about it's like, hey, it's like about my swings, my pose.
Right, but like it gives this, you're painting this picture though of what is truly amazing about this technology, right? Is that once you start to understand motion,
Yeah,
people's physics, if you will,
yeah,
that's really fascinating, both from a healthcare perspective, where you could have doctors and do evaluations of people's posture, even sitting at their desk, and give them, you know, real time tips about how to improve their posture so they don't have back issues. Right through to maybe someone, as you say, who is interested in the sport. A swing is a great example, whether it's a baseball player, which again I know nothing about either, Sherry. So we're friends there on that one. But but the ability though for people to their again this idea of their physicality can be evaluated and corrected and given feedback by a person or even a machine, right?
yeah,
And that is again, it just starts to give you these glimpses into where these technologies are going and the aids and the support, the augmentation really that
yeah,
they can offer people in real time, whether it's someone who could even be suffering from physical issues, a quadriplegic, and they can use different gestures to interact with the machine to perform certain tasks, right through to someone who just likes to stand up and use the screen to move different windows around their monitor rather than sort of be stuck to a mouse. Like the possibilities again for me are sort of endless when you show what's possible with this. And I would always encourage everybody go check out neural-lab.com just to see even some of the demos of this technology because it's cool. Like to me, and I got to see it when you were literally like a rubber band and like a old USB camera, like you're holding there, and you're like, go on, start waving your hands and like watching my mouse move around the screen to the use cases and the sort of ancillary services and support that you're starting to offer now, which is just again, it's amazing to watch. So, talk to us a little bit about that entrepreneurial journey for you too, right? So, the first time we ever spoke, when you started the business, as you said, you chose your time in life to do it, which I think is spot on. Like at the time, I personally, I had one small kid. We had another small kid just about to arrive. I was trying to start Nobody Studios. I was exhausted. I probably
um,
still am exhausted, but so everything you were sharing just really resonated. What have been some of the interesting twists and turns, both helping people understand, what computer vision, machine visual intelligence, like you're really pushing the market, but you're also educating people in the market, and you're learning how to do that as an entrepreneur. So, what have been some of the things that have stood out to you going on that path of sort of breaking new ground, educating customers? What have we? And I know you just came back from another conference literally yesterday. What are you hearing when people are at those events, and then how's it shaping your approach as an entrepreneur?
I think customer feedback is definitely king. And so, yeah, no, I mean, your reaction, I love that. And we love seeing that every time we demonstrate our technology in person and getting feedback. And yeah, I think we still at the beginning, and most people don't believe that it is possible. People try it with, I think they think like Microsoft Connect, and they thought that I think Leap Motion was the company, but most people didn't think that hey, the technology has progressed to a point where it's accessible to everybody, and that's number one. So I think we're a company in some way, pioneering it, leading the pack. It's not always the easiest place to be, because if people don't think it's possible, then they don't think about it. I mean, they don't think about using your product, and that to a lot of investor, it looks like, oh, there's not a market for it, or that hey, you just giving a cool tech demo, but you're a cool tech looking for a market. So kind of overcoming those challenges by listening. Yeah, I mean, listening to the customer feedback is key. That we always ask is like, hey, can you see yourself using this? Like, what kind of challenges does it help you solve? And then we optimize, for those experiences. So one of our discovery, I mean, we one of the conference we just came back for is our RSNA. I think that's Radiological North America conference. And we found that, for medical, where everything needs to be sterile, surgical environment, that seemed to be resonating. And one of the way that we trying to find product market fit is, kind of, yeah, looking at people's reaction. Is this just like, oh, okay, this is a cool this is a cool product. But when you start asking them like, hey, how would you use this? Can you see yourself using this? What problems does it solve for you? And then, it's like I think that's where we separate the people who are like, oh, they need it now versus like, oh, okay, this is a cool tech that I can play with. And one of the area that, yeah, we need it now is a surgical type scenario, a surgical or procedure. I mean, the story we hear, is just like horrifying. It's just like, well, what are the workarounds today? It was like, okay, you yell at another person, you speak this, the surgeons speak in the microphone to, um, another person who is not scrubbing, outside to just like, okay, move the screen, zoom in a little more, kind of. So those are the type of instructions hard to provide. It's like, oh, how much, do you zoom in? And then a lot of time users say, okay, forget it. I will. I found that, sometimes the workaround is like they rescan the patients during the procedure to get, the right, the right position, the right image. But that adds radiation dose, depending on the scan. You're exposing, patients to more radiation. The surgeons themselves exposed to more radiation, which is, much more harmful because, surgeons are the one who are going to be exposing to a lot more, accumulating, the exposure over the career, and causes, the illness, cancer later on. So these are the type of problem that we solving in, kind of in our journey, finding, kind of where the critical needs are to solve today.
Yeah, no, it is truly amazing what you're doing, because people, they really start to see these use cases come alive. I think when we were again in the pandemic, one of the opportunities that you were describing was this ability for people to check in to airplanes without touching anything.
Yes.
Literally walking through an airport and using these tools like to gesture, to interact with check-in terminals, to really limit their exposure to contacting surfaces, which again for me at the time was like, oh wow, yeah, this is going to be super helpful for people, right through to how you're extrapolating it now, where someone's performing a complex surgery and they want to be able to look at images and manipulate them and move them while they're performing the surgery, to look at scans and actually, as you say, use a motion to zoom into a particular area before they perform an incision. Again, this is why the idea of Minority Report just instantly flew into my head, where I was just thinking, I'm suddenly Tom Cruise and I'm solving murder mysteries with my magical hands and pulling things out and looking at all these images and drawing them in, and which is very much the promise, right? That people sort of have been told, like this is going to arrive, and you're already building this content. And yet, as you described, which I think is a really important issue as an entrepreneur, is that people almost don't believe it's possible. The pushbacks and objections are often, oh no, you've just built this really cool thing, but where's the utility in it? And then you're out there sort of, spending time with these future customers and users to sort of show how it works in their day to day, and almost really retrain how people can interact in their spaces, which to me, again, is this massive sort of on-learning moment that folks are going to have to potentially go through about. We've been so trained that interaction is a keyboard and a mouse with a machine. That's they are your tools. But now I feel like we're moving, and the industry is starting to move to these ideas where you can use natural gestures, that your whole physicality can become an input device, which again for me is just like awesome, because it unlocks more ways for people to interact with their natural traits of how they operate to solve tasks that are important to them with this tool. And I think it keeps getting lost in many ways, that we've been conditioned. The way you create emails is you have to type. Like, I'm dyslexic, so typing is tough for me, but talking out emails radically changed the speed at which I could get stuff done.
Yes.
You know, and so these sort of like reframings that have to happen every so often, where it's like, no, you don't just have to use a mouse to move around and click on things. You can be interacting. And again, in the surgeon example is so interesting for me because they're holding sterilized devices. You know, what do they do? Like put the scalpel in their mouth and then go to their iPhone and pinch and move something to like zoom in on the
They have
picture,
to,
right? Like,
yeah, they have to unscrub and scrub back in, or they have like multiple layers of glove that they remove. And yeah, I mean, the workaround is definitely painful. And it's amazing what you said about unlearning. Yeah, that is a customer journey we're definitely seeing. In medical, the procedures, the clinical procedures, they have their process down, right? I mean, for safety reason, for patient safety, they want something that's repeatable, but their clinician workflow is all built around, okay, wiping down surfaces, or putting covers on controller or mouse, so that they can still interact with it in a sterile environment, um, or like you say, kind of like scrubbing and unscrubbing, and yeah, and what do you do? It's like this technology really threw all that, the existing process out the window, and really, people discovering it was like, hey, what are ways I can unlock, usage of the technology now that I no longer need to touch the surface. I no longer need to worry about contamination, with every interaction with the surfaces. And I don't need to guard the interaction like it's some precious commodity. I can interact as many times as I want, like pan or zoom in as many images as I need, and really fully utilize the technology. So I think the excitement is like still to come. Is like, hey, if that no longer becomes a barrier, what other things become possible? What other technology can you bring in to the hospital, to the surgical suite, to really help improve patients' life, or help improve the physician's life, the care provider's life?
so looking forward then, right? As I say, you're right on the edge of this. You really are, right on this sort of leading edge of this. What are you most excited about as you look ahead into the space of computer vision, of true human interaction with these machines in a way that maybe most people can't, like, still they're getting their head around talking to ChatGPT, never mind, doing hand movements and gestures and it giving it feedback to say, sit up straight in your chair, Barry, otherwise you're going to have a spinal infusion in 3 years' time, So, tell us some of the things that you're excited about.
Yeah, yeah. So I think, once a more focused place on this, like you said, this computer vision, visual intelligence, I think, um, there's a next level of human potential to be unlocked here. We actually get a lot of interest in like physical therapy, like you said, make sure that you're doing it correctly, and make sure that, and really, recording down, noting down how many times you're doing it per day, per week, right? So some of the pain point is like, oh, okay, you need rehab following a surgery, but then, it's like, how do you, um, but then, it's like, are you actually doing it at home? And are you actually doing it correctly? So this is a technology that potentially can make sure that, ensure you're doing it correctly, coach you along, and also record down, whether you're following the prescription that, physician, your physical therapist gave you. But I mean, back to an example about, I was like, okay, let's not go with the baseball. It's like, okay, tennis, it's like, I think in the not too distant future, every kids should be able to be coached by Serena Williams, right? You can have a virtual Serena Williams that sees, it's like, hey, as you're doing your swing, how to correct it real time, and to be able to also look at, your, how good of a shape you're in, quote unquote,
Yeah.
prescribe, kind of the regimen, your exercise regimen for you to strengthen the different part of your muscle, and potentially your diet, etc. And then kind of seeing your progress and recording your progress. How you're improving your swing. You can see that you have more power, right, in your swing, and that, or you become more agile, etc. So I think it's like I think potentially every 12-year-old kid can become as good as Serena Williams in 6 months, from no experience to be a pro in 6 months, because you get the world class expert level coach, and adding kind of a gamification algorithm to keep somebody motivated. Right, you earn a badge, you earn a star, you get
Yeah.
that daily gratifications for completing your checklist. So I think this is what I see is like kind of the next level of unlocking human potential. I mean, there are traits, there are skills that they're in short supply. I mean, it's like medical, well, surgery. I mean, back to the surgery. I mean, you can have expert surgeon training everybody. And today, it seems like for surgery, a lot of it's you have to learn by doing, being trained
Yeah.
by a surgeon, another expert, and that is very hard to scale. And so, having this technology, again, the expert, top surgeon in the world, constantly, looking over your shoulder, training you. And, so I think, yeah, this is the next level of unlocking human potential. And a lot of discussion around AI is, hey, it's replacing jobs. Yeah, I mean, my son, he's a he's a junior at UC Berkeley studying computer science. It's like seeing the effect. It's like it's hard to find a job as a software engineer currently. A lot of people graduating with no job, but I think it's like, I see AI having the potential to augment every human to be better at their job, their passions, or whatever inspires them. I wish more people actually would talk more about this, and work at enhancing the human potential versus replacing humans.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, and I think that's one of the exciting parts for me. There is too much doom and gloom and fear out there about how these technologies can augment your natural traits. They can help you improve in ways that you can't even imagine right now. And I love that example, specifically because even in Unlearn, Serena Williams was one of the people who really inspired me about how she continuously adapted her behavior and how she played the game to be even more successful, the longer that she played the game. And that is a fascinating idea. Like you can imagine these kids being inspired where instead of maybe making TikTok videos where they're just dancing all day, they could be recording themselves doing an activity that is both healthy for their mind and body, and being challenged by the greatest to ever do it to perfect their skills, and be recognized for that, as for the effort they're putting in, but just through the improvement that they get. And for me, like, that's something to be excited about with these technologies, rather than to paint this picture that they're here to eliminate people. That it's here to elevate people, and that is an amazing thing to be excited about. And yes, we need more software engineers to build these things, because then there's going to be more awesome things to help us all find higher performance in what we're seeking, not just this sort of productivity aspect that sort of seems to run it. Listen, Sherry, it's been amazing to have you on the show. I really encourage everybody, go check out Neural Lab, neural-lab.com. It's an absolutely awesome product. You're building something really, really cool, really at the front edge of computer vision and gesture and really interaction intelligence as you describe it. I think I continue to be inspired following your LinkedIn feed and the different things that you're doing and the stuff that you're building. Thank you very much for coming on and sharing what you're working on the show.
Thank you, Barry.
Thanks so much for listening. If you found this episode useful, make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Please consider leaving a rating or a review as it helps others find our podcast. For more episodes and details about the show, visit barryoreilly.com and we'll see you on the next episode.